Hi, this is Fran with Stampendous, and this is video 102 in our watercolor series. If you haven't seen 101, you may want to go back and look at that. And we had all the countdown videos that explain all of the art materials. So we're going to jump right in and move along quickly and assume that you've seen some of the earlier ones as the basics. And I've got a lot of fun things to show you in this one where we're going to do a lot more stamping and combining of different images. So as carryover from the last class and the homework that we recommended, we have tried painting the flowers in all different color schemes with wet on wet techniques. You should know how to keep all of your colors vibrant if you want to. Try different backgrounds. And you can see here that two different flowers from this set we are now going to combine today. So here you can see we've taken these two flower stamps, and using the VersaFine ink, I've stamped this ahead of time so that it had time to dry. I've just done a strip all the way across. And you can see, if you look close, where I've just stamped this one and then this one and back to each, alternating them to just fill in the whole area. They're barely touching, but it fills in a beautiful field of flowers. I've got all of my Daniel Smith colors in my palette the way we had planned out. And I'm going to take my spritz bottle and just lightly spritz everything here to get it started. Move my paper. And that way I will revive all of these puddles. The lights will dry it out a little bit more because I'm working with bright light here. I'm going to use the needle tip and just put a small amount of water to revive each of my puddles. And that will allow me to get the different shades of these pre-mixed colors. And there we go. Okay, I've got my water over here. My big container is my swamp for cleanup, and my well water in here I'll preserve for when I need fresh water. And I'm going to start with my yellow. This is the most difficult color to keep, this beautiful yellow. So by starting with it, that will be a good way to go here. I know my brush is clean to begin with, and I have my pure paint in the pockets back here to replenish these puddles as needed. And I am now going to do a very loose kind of painting. And those of you that have been working very precise and think you have to color in by the lines and can't go outside the lines, I'm going to stretch you today because I want you to see how fun, easy, and effective it actually can be just to do these beautiful color washes. And it works really well with this idea of this just being a whole field of flowers. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of yellows to start with. I'm going over the lines, and that's okay. I'm doing beautiful color. We'll have a little yellow butterfly up here, and maybe some more yellow over here, maybe some yellow in the middle here, and that's going to give me lots of happy colors. Okay, now I'm going to move to the gamboge, which is the next color. And I hardly need to clean my brush, although something looked a little bit dark. So I'm going to clean my brush off in the swamp. I've got a Kleenex or paper napkin and a little test strip in case I need to check anything. Okay, so now I'm going to this beautiful yellow-orange color called gamboge. Got a place in the palette right here. Get a nice wet brush here. And now we're going to add another beautiful array of color. I can do these two colors together if I don't mind them mixing together a little bit. And We'll just get lots of fun colors, and let's see, let's do some more of this color up here. And this is loose and quick and very colorful, and I'm going to work from my lighter colors here to the richer colors. I would just do the whole flower there. Okay, and then I wouldn't really need to clean my brush since I'm moving in order here, but now I'm going to go to this beautiful scarlet color, a rather orangey color, and I want my puddles to be pretty rich color here because I'm going for a bold color look at the moment. If I need a little bit more color, I go into the pocket. And let's see, let's do some color in the center here. And this is real time, you're seeing it just going real fast. But I might as well speed it up and let you see how it develops on an even quicker timetable. Let's see, I think I need a little bit more of that to balance it out here. Here's my rose. Now I'm going to do purples. I have rose and each of the blues in these compartments. I can get more rose or more blue, and I've got a puddle going down here. These splashes of color in other areas are going to look like more flowers in the background, so I'm just having fun. We're going to fill in color all the way across here. Let's get a little bit more of a magenta purple. Oh, that's nice. Okay, now I've left a little bit of room for some blues. Could let that dry a little bit before I add my greens, but I'm living dangerously here, so let's just talk about mixing our greens. So we have your beautiful light yellow in two more compartments. This one we keep pure when we just want yellow, but here I've got yellow with the inside or the phthalo blue and yellow with the marine or the French ultramarine blue over here. So these colors of greens I can mix together with my wet brush in the pocket, and I can go more to the yellow or more with the blue to create a lighter or darker range of greens. In this color range I want even more yellow than that, almost a lime green here. Okay, and over here I've got, I get more of an olive color, and again it can be light to dark values within that mix. So, you know, I noticed I missed one flower here, so I'm going to retrieve a little bit of that green off my brush, come back in, and let's see, what color do we need some more of? Maybe we'll do a blue. Okay. Okay, so there's more of a lime kind of green color. Okay, so now I'm going to fill in any more of these areas. With some greens. This is a very impressionistic approach that you can see how quick it is, and I think it's really fun. And if you've been coloring in the lines, I think you need to try it. You could always go back to very precise coloring later, but I think it's good to just give it a try. Okay, that looks very fun and colorful. And perhaps I want a little bit of this darker green. So I will shift over here, and while some of this is still wet, I'll come back in and add a little bit more of some darker greens here and there. Okay, and that just sort of gives depth to some of the painting. Okay. So things are drying pretty quick because I've got my nice bright lights so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm letting this dry just a little bit while I tell you what we're going to do next. We're going to splatter this with some more color, and if some colors are still wet, we will get some very interesting effects. And so I've taken a large sheet of scrap paper, some newsprint, folded in quarters, and tore away a piece here that gives me a mask of sorts, okay? So because I don't want to splatter color everywhere, let's see, let's make sure that we have some blue going here. I think I'll start by splattering with this blue. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I have a puddle that's got pretty strong color, because when it dries it's going to be a bit lighter, and I need quite a bit of water for this to work. And if you haven't done any splattering before, I would recommend that you test it on something. Okay, so like we did in the brush exercise, get as much of this blue into your brush as you possibly can. And then with another tool like this, there we go, that's giving me a really nice dots, and it's spreading, and which may be a little bit different on different papers. So let's do it on this one that's dry already. These splatters go everywhere. Okay, so here we go. Okay, and sometimes a little bit is just enough to create a really nice look without going crazy. And that looks quite fun. And this one that I did on this end, let's do some over here as well. And again, I do not want to splatter bits of color into my palette, so cover up what you want to protect here. Those were much smaller little splatters, so I'm going to reload my brush again. Okay, I think that looks very fun without going too crazy. And sometimes you'll do one color, or you might do several colors, but start with one and see how it looks. So here's one where I trimmed it out and made it into a card, and I think it's just such vivid, fun color, and every time you do it you're going to get different results, of course. And back to this one here. Oh, we better do some splattering on this one here. So you may have a piece that you thought just looked too loose and sloppy for you. Well, then it's the perfect one to test the splattering on, But my guess is you're going to like it even more once you get it all to come together with this beautiful splash of color. And I made actually 2 cards out of this. I was able to use my circle wafer die and cut a beautiful area on this end. You could decide which one works the best, and then the balance of it made a full A2 card. So have some fun with that and try it in all different colors, because every time you do it will give you a different, beautiful, interesting result. So here's another range of possibilities just for your homework suggestions. You can try it in a different, more pastel color scheme like this one. You can do a whole stack of different ones here. And of course it's easy if you want to color in the lines, but do give it a try with this loose look and see if you don't have a good warm-up practice and have a lot of fun with it. Next, I want to show you some variations with the hydrangeas that you can do. We started out doing it in a single color. Why don't you try doing it in lavender with maybe some of the olivey green? And for that, the colors from this mix will give you those beautiful olive colors and your purples. Hydrangeas come in so many beautiful colors. You might as well try all of these different looks here. And then I realized that I could even make it a primrose. So in order to make it a primrose, you see that these the primrose flowers have a lot of yellow in the center. So I'm just going to do this one part as a visual to remind you of how the easiest way to do it would be. Get a nice clean brush. Get some nice yellow, and then do a swash of yellow in the centers on all of these, and then let that dry before you come back and do other colors on the hydrangeas. And often the colors of the hydrangeas are quite mottled, and so the sprinkling and splattering of colors is very fun with it. The leaves often have quite a bit of pinks along with the greens. So have some fun trying a variety of these examples. Now I want to show you some tips that will be a big help with balloons and kites. And we've not done a whole lot with them yet. So let me start by, I'm going to do my sky first. And I find that usually if I do the background first, that's the most helpful. I'm testing that I have a light to medium blue on my brush, and I'm just going to do an interesting little light wash. And I'm just going to work around the balloons and think about that, the negative shape of your little puffy clouds here. And in this way, the balloons are dry. I won't have to wait for that. I'll be able to proceed. Okay, so that looks interesting. And while that's drying just a little bit more, I might as well do a similar wash over here on the kites. Think puffy clouds, and the blue is your negative space around the edge. Okay, and again, the kites are dry, so that lets me work without one color bleeding into another. Now, if I were doing this approach, I would need to let all of the blue dry, and I would recommend doing it first. And when it's dry, then you could come back and do the color on the kites without the colors flooding together. Okay, next, I will make sure I'm going to do some yellow, so I want to really make sure that my brush is clean. Check it here. Okay, go into my well water, and using my Hansa yellow light here, I preserve this little area for my nice beautiful yellow. And I found that the balloons are small, so it really doesn't help to have a whole lot of water. You end up with a puddle, it's going to dry rather irregular. So usually a little bit drier approach is better. I'm going to assume that my light is coming from this side and my highlight would be on that side. And if I want to make it look rounded, then I can add a little bit deeper color down here. And now I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to move on to another color and cleaning my brush in my swamp and testing it, some clean well water. Now I will move over here to my scarlet color, and this is looking kind of light and kind of watery, so build up a little bit more of your scarlet and get a nice medium value. And again, I'm going to work around a little highlight there. And this is pretty wet, so when it dries irregularly, you sometimes get an awkward look to it. So if you've got too much color, you can do your little mop-up technique, but keep the highlight dry or the color will flood into that area as well. So with a little bit drier brush, I'm going to get a little bit more scarlet and come back in while it's, and I'm going to add a little bit of rose down here. Okay, and you'll find that as it dries, it changes quite a bit. So you just need to practice it and try doing a whole range of different colors. On this one, I did all of the little strings coming down. On this one, I stamped the string only on this one, cleaned off my stamp, and stamped only the balloons. And then I was able to do some little straight strings on there as well. Another tip, if you're overlapping the colors and want the translucent look of it, I would recommend doing the yellow, let's say, and let that completely dry. Do the blue and let that dry, and then come back in and do that middle area. If all of them are wet, all the colors will just keep moving back and forth. After your base color is dry, you might do some more shading or even add some other patterns. And you can see lots of fun possibilities. If you want to try the free flow technique that we did at the beginning, you can get the whole balloon area wet and then touch in some of these other colors and see how they mix together on their own in that wet on wet free flow. Now let's do some landscapes and play with our tree and little fence stamps. And I wanted to show a very helpful couple of tips here. So we're going to start out with our blue sky. Again, make sure I've got a medium to light blue, maybe a little bit more water here. My needle tip will kind of get some more water going. This is the inside blue or the phthalo blue. Now it's too dark, so we'll add some more. Okay, and I'm going to dry my brush as well so that it's not too much of a puddle. Okay, and this is where your test strip, you might as well figure out what's happening on your test strip before you do your painting. Okay, so I'm going to add some soft blues up here for the sky, and I want to do all the area in here between the tree, and because it's a light color, this is going to work just right. And while that's drying, I'm going to do the same over here, and I can stop down here leaving some little puffy clouds if I want, but because this is a light blue, I can go across the tree, and that's going to work just fine. Well, maybe flood it with a little bit more. Next, let's talk about how we're going to mix some browns and beige colors. So up here, make sure you can see here to the top of my palette. I'm going to go back and reference our color wheel, and you can watch the video on this. But remember how we took the 3 warm colors and the dots together. I totally swirled them together to get these beautiful browns. And the cool colors were mixed together over here to give me the really dark, cool black colors or grays. So in my palette, I found that it's the best to squirt out those 3 colors kind of far apart so that you can kind of create a triangle. And since I had done this before and it dried, I'm going to spritz it to revive again with just a little bit of water. So if I begin to swirl all 3 of these colors, I can do more of the scarlet, more of the gamboge, or more of the blue to get all different shades. And if it goes too dark, then bring in some more of the red, bring in some more of the yellow, and keep mixing till you get a nice medium brown, okay? So what I've done over here, I cleaned my brush into each of these compartments so that I would have a dark brown up here. I would have more of a reddish brown in this one, and a medium brown and a lighter brown. Right now I've got a lot of dark brown on my brush, so I'm going to try to clean some of it off into these compartments and test with my brush. Okay, so there's a nice brown for my tree trunk. So using just the tip of my brush, and there's no other wet areas around this, I can simply paint in the tree trunk. Okay. Then I want a lighter brown, and so I will need some more of the gamboge, and didn't realize how low I had gotten, so we just replenish. And I tend to just replenish a small amount at a time here, but I don't want to contaminate the pure color I have there. So, okay, so now I can get some more of a lighter beige working here. And this area had my lightest brown. I'll put a bit more water in there. Okay, I've got quite a bit of water, so I'm drying off my brush a little bit. Okay, now that looks, maybe I want it a little bit lighter. I'm going to clean off my brush. Okay, so now I have a lighter brown on my brush. To create this little road, I found just stamping the fence twice gave me a beautiful illusion here of a path going over the hillside. So let's say I place that down and it's still looking a little bit dark to me. I'm cleaning off my brush on my blotter, and then I can come back in and, almost using that mop-up approach, lift a little bit more of it. So I would place that color first and allow that to dry before I come back in with the greens. But just to show you now, this area is dry. We'll come back with our greens, and again I can make a more of a yellow green here. I'm going to clean my brush a little bit more in the swamp. Get some well water. Okay, and I can get more yellow or more blue depending on a light or darker green that I want. And in this compartment I have the same yellow, but now with the marine blue, which will give me more of an olive color. And I have a place for that here. So I'm going to replenish both of these so that I can access them easily. And since I don't want to start with the darker green, I cleaned off my brush. Okay, so a nice light green. So now I can do this green over the leafy areas of the tree, and going over the blues is not a problem. So there are my lightest highlight greens to start with. And even kind of doing a dotting sort of gives me a little bit more texture. And then I can add some of the olive green, and while it's still damp, I'm now going to the underside and to the left side, again assuming my light is coming from this side. So now you can see how that little bit of blue showing through is really quite nice. And then I'll come back down here, and again I'm assuming that my brown has had a chance to dry. If I do some swoops back here, it'll look like hills off in the distance, and just bring it forward to an interesting little vignette shape here. Okay, and it comes together just as easy as that. Do it again over here on your larger hillside. And again, now I'm just going to paint around my little pathway. Here you can see a few more variations where I wasn't rushing it and have made them into cards. This one I've added some lavenders into the sky and painted around the little flowers. Over here you can see the tree can become cherry blossoms if you use some of your rose and a light color. And this one is quite fun as well to see how I've introduced fall colors. And I'm using more of the browns from all of my mixing up here. And the sky had the light blues with a little bit of the grays from the black area. So try some different little landscapes with the tree and the little path. Now I want to show you some other variations for our little ocean scenes. And I want to encourage you to try this a little bit different color palette with this. And so far we've been using, our pure colors, but you can mix some beautiful other shades as well. And I referenced this interesting little print because I just loved all of the color range in this. So let's see how we do some of that. Okay, we'll make sure I'm starting with a clean brush. I'm going to do a free flow of some color up here at the top. And I want to encourage you to think about this in its simplest form first, which would be virtually just stripes of color. So let's say we flooded some of this blue up here at the top. And again, we might want a real dark up at the top. But just to keep it simple here, let's think about stripes. Stripe of dark blue, and you can see how even leaving some white in between is interesting. I'm just going to get a little bit more of the darkest shade of that marine. It's just such a beautiful color. Okay, so we've got a dark blue for the sky. Then we want to mix more of a turquoise color. So I start out with my inside blue, or my phthalo blue. And then I'm going to add some green to it. And since I have some green mixed over here, I'm going to bring some of that over and test it here. Okay, now that gave me a really nice option just by adding that olivey green. So again, think of doing some stripes here, and let's mix this in. And again, I can mix more just of the blue from there, and maybe it needs just a little bit of that yellow. Test it again. So I want some of this darker on my brush. Okay, so I'm going to flood it along the horizon line. You can see here how much darker it is right there. So try doing even just like stripe of those colors for your ocean. And a lot of this is just to practice mixing a little bit different shade of color. And you start out with simple stripes, and then you can add more and more complexity to it as you kind of get a new color scheme going. So next we're going to do some soft colors for the sand or the beach. Here there's very little color to it at all, but I'm going to start from my area of browns up here, and here's some lighter yellow, and I'm going to test it here. And since we were working with that for our little pathway with the tree, that really is pretty much the same of what I'm going to use here. And I need a little bit more of the brown to it, so I dipped into that. And again, I can almost do some little dots of color. And if I get a little bit more of the darker brown on the tip of my brush, I might just go along an irregular edge up here. Might be a little bit darker, and that is going to look like a wave coming in. Look there. So as simple as that, and you can see each time might be a little bit different, but you get a very interesting, slightly different color scheme. And if you want to just leave a white area like we did over here, then you could, between your stripes, allow an area for your little sailboats and incorporate the seagulls however you like. So try playing with some of these different colors and see what you can do from a simple format to more complex ones. And I want to show you a couple other discoveries I had here. Having done that little pathway and the fence, I realized that I could have my shoreline and the ocean in the distance. And I start from the sky, do my little horizon, but stop short of where I want a little hillside. Look at all of these variations. And this looks more like the North Carolina coast to me, and some of the sand dunes. And then I added the flowers, and you can see so many variations. And this again is just really punching all of those colors that we experimented with here. So have some fun trying some other sailboat and beachfront scenes. And remember, if you're struggling with a particular technique, you can always go back and review some of the techniques in the first lesson that we did, and now these techniques will build on that.